virtually every day.
Right.
Saying, okay, I'm going to live my life honestly, and
and that's it.
Openly.
It's a question of being honest with yourself, and that self-acceptance. But I have to say, I did meet. I've been doing speaking engagements with the Stonewall Speakers Speaking Bureau, and I did meet at one of the schools down along the central Connecticut shoreline. 16-year-old freshman, high school freshman, who at an assembly got up on stage, came out to the school,
wow,
and explained to them some of the bullying that had been going on and the hurtful remarks, and they said that that coming out has had an incredible change on the classes that are at the school right now.
Wow, that is really
so.
cool.
I mean, that's courage I would never have found as a
Yeah.
high school freshman, to get up on a stage in front of the entire school and come out.
Wow, wow, that is so
brave
cool.
soul.
Yeah.
Brave soul.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It's a good thing.
About the suit in Massachusetts, do they predict any sort of timeline for it, or what's the next
no,
step?
I read a couple of the articles. They all sounded pretty similar, probably the same Associated Press feed. But the only thing that they did mention in one of the other articles, it's not here, is that in previous years there have been other challenges to DOMA. There was an individual challenge to DOMA under basically the same argument that didn't succeed at the federal level, but it was prior to the current administration, and it was an individual's challenge, whereas this is a state asserting its state's rights issue to the federal government,
Sure.
claiming that Congress overstepped its bounds when they took some of the ability for the state to define marriage away from the state.
That's a very different kind of legal position to be.
Where the grieved status is coming from the state itself,
Right.
not someone filing on their behalf, sort of.
Not someone filing on their own behalf.
On their own
Right.
behalf, but yeah.
Right.
Well, hopefully this will succeed. I want DOMA to go away.
And honestly, not to force every state in the country, although I would love it, but not to force every state in the country to recognize gay marriage. I'm comfortable with the states decide issue, and over time, states will decide.
Yeah.
I would also be very comfortable with the federal government finding it unconstitutional to discriminate in that way.
Yeah.
That it violates my federal civil rights to not be able to get married in a state. But, if you're going to argue that it's a states' rights issues, then you don't want the federal government stepping in on either side of it.
Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm. It's sort of hard to imagine. I think about this sometimes. That the fact that we basically are a very small minority, and we are discriminated against. And
Transgender
in this,
folks.
Transgender, and certainly our broader community, the LGBT community or GLBT community, whichever way you prefer
Queer,
to say
rainbow.
that. The rainbow community, yeah, is certainly a bigger community, but it's just so hard to believe that in this day and age, after what we've been through in this country, that we still have discrimination. And it's got to stop. It's just got to stop. But it just blows me away sometimes. And some of the things that I hear, and it's like, wait a minute, come on. It's like, you would think that people in this country would recognize discrimination, but I don't know.
Well, it sounds like this is going to be a discrimination show.
Well,
because you have a letter that you wrote, right, to the task force.
Yes. If you're ready for it.
Please,
yes. Well, I have been trying to get the attention of the National Executive Director of the Gay and Lesbian Task Force, which is a national organization. They have they have very large staff and do all sorts of very good work all over the country. So I have been trying to get her attention with several voicemails and with several emails, and have so far not gotten a response, but I'd like to share the letter that I sent
Please.
To Rhea Carey, Executive Director, National Gay and Lesbian Task Force. Dear Ms. Carey, I have spoken with your predecessor, Matt Foreman, in person and by phone at length about the debilitated state of national bisexual activism over the past few years since Dr. Fritz Klein's passing 3 years ago. The Bi-Media Summit in New York City last month, at which I spoke about this issue and about the almost non-existent bi-media, was a start. As usual in the current state of bi-activism, there has been no follow-up to that landmark event, and so the time to build on that is passing. And that was really an extraordinary event, and I was really honored to participate in that. It was at the New York Gay and Lesbian Center, the GLBT Center. And it was a bi-media summit, an all-day workshops and such. Defining bisexuality as 2s, 3s, and 4s on the 0 to 6 Kinsey scale in his Stanford Law Review thesis called The Epistemic Contract of Bisexual Erasure, Yale law scholar Kenji Yoshino's 2001 paper revealed that every major scientific sexuality study shows that bisexuality exists in equal or greater numbers than Kinsey 5 or 6 homosexuality. So bisexuality and bisexuals are unseen by the gay, male, and lesbian communities, and by heterosexuals for separate yet overlapping reasons in a social process that Yoshino terms bisexual erasure. The American bisexual population is not merely the least understood sexual minority among GLBTIQ communities. To reiterate, that means gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, intersex, queer, and questioning. So presumably that doesn't include some of the other communities, but that
It's intended as an umbrella for everybody.
Right, it's intended, but I'm sure there are some
People that
polyamorous people who are going, what about us?
feeling left out.
What about the autosexuals?
We don't mean to leave anybody out, but
We don't. We really do. Hope to be all inclusive.
we don't have enough letters, so go on.
True. Anyway, so not only is the bisexual population the least understood sexual minority, it's also the most underserved politically. And as the owner of 2 geriatric dogs, I've come upon a truism about moving together as a group, which is, you're only as fast as the slowest dog.
Right.
So, in terms of GLBTIQ or political organizing, a movement comprised of many communities and subcultures is only as strong as its weakest link. And clearly, the weakest link in the GLBT chain is the B. It's the bisexual community. In your most recent fundraising letter that I received, you assert that, quote, we know that in order to create the change that will lead to equality, the task force must pump up the strength of local LGBT activism in rural enclaves, small towns and cities, as well as sprawling metropolises. Bolster grassroots activists, strengthen the infrastructure of local and state allies, and create public support for full equality for LGBT people. Sounds like a nice plan, huh? Well, from my perspective, the task force has yet to live up to its stated responsibility to pump up